This next young man, my gosh, this is our Johnny Appleseed, the poet laureate of Orange County for 2 years, and hopefully they'll flip it and make him run for life. He deserves it. He is responsible for, it's got to be at least 1,000 events now in all this time that he's been doing it. I wouldn't be here if he hadn't established what he had established, and the list goes on with Mona Toscano, who's now just been rightfully acknowledged as Dutchess County, I beg your pardon, as Poet Laureate of Newburgh, and Raphael Kosek, who's the Laureate of Dutchess County. Very proud of these people. Robert is of Florida, New York, and he's been reading his poetry in public beginning 1995. Not only with all these readings, he has done 500 features since National Poetry Month, which was what, April '96, I think that was his virgin beginning. He hosted 30 poetry series since September '95, currently hosts 4 in the Valley, and poetry readings and 2 seasonal events. One of the seasonal events is Thurman Ghosts, which is quite a tickle, where he does his ghost poetry with an underpinning of Thurman. He has been published in over 24 magazines, 24 anthologies, including Home Planet News, Chronogram, The Cliffhanger from Sarah Lawrence College, Reverend, that's Coat Hill Press 2007, Water Riders, which is Coat Hill Press 2009, many websites, as well as Howland Cultural Center, 2018 catalog. The books, Ophelia's Offerings, which is Foothill Publications, Canona, New York, 2007. Crowweather, Fierce Grace Press, Wilmington, Delaware, 2009. Dickinson's Pet Raven, which is Fierce Grace Press, Wilmington, Delaware, 2014. Victoria House, Goth and Gothic Poems, which is Lionel's Music Publishing, New York City, 2015. Gothic Orange Poems from Orange County, New York, published October 2018 with a grant from the Orange County government. Goshen, New York, in support from Orange County, New York, Office of the Historian. CDs, Revenant Echo, which is Sanatrope Records, High Falls, New York, that was in 2004. Underground, APT Productions, Walk Hill, New York, 2008. Each October since 2003, Milby in Ulster County, New York, artist Carl Weldon. That is the Thurman Ghost I had mentioned before. That's every October. And he serves as a judge for the annual Timothy Mulford Memorial Poetry Contest of Cornwall Library, Cornwall, New York, and for the annual Storm King School Poetry Contest, Cornwall and Hudson, New York. He's our Orange County Poet Laureate. It gives me great pride and privilege and pleasure, Robert Milby.
Thank you, Hayden. Thank you to Craig and Thomas and Florence as well. Emily Dickinson was born on the 10th of December, 1830. It sifts from leaden sieves, it powders all the wood, it fills with alabaster wool the wrinkles of the road. It makes an even face of mountain and of plain, unbroken forehead from the east unto the east again. It reaches to the fence, it wraps it rail by rail, till it is lost in fleeces, it deals celestial veil. To stump and stack and stem, a summer's empty room, acres of joints where harvests were, recordless but for them. It ruffles wrists of posts as ankles of a queen, then stills its artisans like ghosts, denying they have been. Emily Dickinson. I recently returned from Saranac Lake, where I spent 3 months in a cure cottage for tuberculosis. No, I'm just kidding. Can't shake this cold, but it's shaking me. On the 13th of December, Heinrich Heine, or Heinrich Heine, the German Romantic era poet, was born in 1797. Here's a translation of The Lorelei, and it's by the American poet Louis Untermeyer. I cannot tell why this imagined sorrow has fallen on me, the ghost of an unburied legend that will not let me be. The air is cool and twilight flows down the quiet Rhine. A mountain alone in the high light catches the faltering shine. One rosy peak, half gleaming, reveals enthroned in air a goddess lost in dreaming, who combs her golden hair. With a golden comb she is combing her hair as she sings a song, heard and reheard through the gloaming, it hurries the night along. The boatman has heard what has bound him in throes of a strange wild love. He is blind to the reefs that surround him, who sees but the vision above. And lo, the wild waters are springing. The boat and the boatman are gone. Then silence. And this, with her singing, the Lorelei has done. Heinrich Heine.
Wow.
Today is also the birthday of the great American poet James Wright, born in Ohio in 1927, and also the American poet, equally as great, Kenneth Patchen, born in 1911. So we have quite a group of Sagittarians for you. So now my back alley exorcism. The Ghosts of Leaves, Mohonk Mountain House, New Paltz, New York, October 31st, 2019. We startle. We are trying to get in. Rain glued to the porch windows, first floor, second, chasing people, cars and trucks down every sidewalk, street, and highway. Winds shout their names as leaves follow children home. Sunlight massages red mums, warming frost-burned petals and stems. 2. We are sycamore, birch, oak, come to tell of phantom smoke rising from chimney throats on ancestral farms. Autumn heavy sky, twig paintbrushes dipped in scarlet orange dyes as we slaked the meadow's drought withered August crops. Sallow silver maple scraps underfoot, vine hairs of the forest matron. 3. Dining at the resort atop the New York mountain, ghosts abound, seated in late Victorian garments, horse clatter, cobble clop, rain rivulets, a storm and its fog progeny before fluent gusts arrive for supper. Mist-washed windows, squalls rubbing panes with yellow Concord cloths, brown oaken napkins, the scrape, the murmur. The landscape howls in gale heights, then silent cloud weep. 4. We die each year, our bodies sacrificed, raked, burned in piles or blown asunder. No one sleuths, drags the lakes, nor blames the winter maestro for somber music of our demise. We are leaf ghosts, bare remnants, snow omens, stark revenants, cast to the skies. The trees, thank you. No cider for Wassel. The wind's cargo of emotions, lost apples in the orchards, frost-rusted leaves now acrid, brown journal entries, holding wistful memories of summer's mother, spring. We can't press cider after frost wrecks the fruit. Cold, yes, but not stores of ice diamonds found in the meat of wrinkled skins, sunken, gray scarlet apple scraps. Lonesome corn husks whisper, warning of night's return, where the crone shall appear and play the spoons, seated on a creaking wooden crate in moonlight-cured ice. Crow barks of gust-tossed hay to slap my wind-scorched face as I stoop to the codger well pump to wash the mud and manure from my boots. Marrow of apples eludes when culled by pastures of snow. The wind's trunk of shrieks, complaints, and bully threats hurled in sun-forsaken fields from winter-darkened barns where generations of farm ghosts speak. This is one from my recent publication, Gothic Orange. These are poems having to do with Orange County, New York. And my books are on the glass case in the front of the building. They're for sale this evening. The Red Fox, near the Warwick Valley Winery and Distillery, Warwick, New York, 2017. A red fox was born from fog memoir under an October vesper. He ran across an onion field to a damp meadow sacred to the screech owl. Autumn dew washed his paws, legs, and fur. Nearby herd of matron deer observed, like a convent of nuns in contemplation. Was his urge to cross the county road a hunting scent or a revenant, chasing him on lonesome fields? Pungent harvest, cabbages, onions, Concord grapes, marsh reek, hardwood shift to leaf blush, and his own rest in the sanctuary of an apple orchard, where the property line offered its secret hovel of a boulder crag. Here he would hide until his rebirth, famished at duskfall, lunar prayers as a restive nocturnal novitiate, pray pursuit, this tawny burnished ghost calling to his ancestors, poem barking over the cold, dark grass. We'll get back to animals later. On a bleak December morning, December prepared its stage for snow, built the ice, the winds, the days of gray. Geese floated across a smoky sky. One scholar crow stood atop a chimney soapbox, his proselytizing heard by wary sparrows and mourning doves at a swaying backyard bird feeder. The dun automobiles continued, a line of bellowing hearses, breathing bodies seated within. They are unaware of farm ghosts, chipmunks darting across the cold street, endless waves of angry brown maple leaves breaking on the sidewalk shoreline. Flakes tumble and float, whispering the memory of ancient mornings when wolves wandered the village tundra, when the solitary crow dreamt of a village in December, but did not figure cars, humans with electronic appendages carried wherever they traveled, refusing to look at the scant sunrise or a bleak December morning. All right. Now, this having to do with architects and our very cathedral to poetry and music, the Howland, appears in this piece. Calvert Vaux, architect for Poseidon. December 20th, 1824, London, England, to November 19th, 1895, Brooklyn, New York. 1. I did not think that leaving my England would lead to much fame and such ruin. My Sagittarius flame blazed in my homeland, carrying the torch to America, holding court in the great city and grand Hudson Valley, would eventually sink in Gravesend Bay, Brooklyn, calling me, hiring me as an architect for Poseidon. What would my London know of Montrepose? I never made it home. In Kingston, New York's haunted cemetery by the railroad tracks, my bones hide, my mind alive within blueprints of the bay. They could have laid my remnants under the shade of a grand oak in Central Park, near one of my bridges, over a lover's lane bestrewn with autumn leaves, one of the fields at the state hospital up in Middletown, my ghost seen only by the patients. 2. Olmsted, your plans and commissions far outshined mine, but I gave to you the gift of old country wisdom, the blueprints of time to break ground in the nascent republic. Hunt, I did not dream of Howland's subscription library with its secret architecture, gables and geometry of initiates, gas lighting, chasing ghosts and intriguing them. Downing, your park was a mere sibling of my garden in Manhattan, child of Eden. In Newburgh, just north of the Grand West Point, I worked with you before the deceptive Hudson claimed you at 36. A map I had no knowledge for. You were decades older, but your passion and wisdom made you nearly immortal. My life, my fire, extinguished above, legacy complete. Yet, below the currents of Gravesend, a new vocation unfolded. Dark November waves, depths of death, fathomed not when in the light of creation. Here was a vacancy in cold New York waters, an architect for Poseidon. Oh look, people are still here. That's a good sign.
What was his name again, Robert?
Calvert Vaux, V-A-U-X, architect. The wood stove. Early winter morning, the wolf is gone. The wind remains in sunrise complaint with bare trees. Wood stove is speaking hot words of combustion, and great heat seeps out from its iron maw. I feed the gray monster seasoned oak, swamp maple with woodpecker art, and elm waiting for the rage of fire. This cauldron is decisive. Either maintain the insatiable appetite or suffer the inevitable flickering cinder, an aperture of smoldering ash from its tiny window on the squeaking door. North wind complains at locked doors and windows glazed in ice. Father taught of primal visions evoked from fireplace wood stove. The cauldron sings through centuries of frost and snow. Walking through groves and roadside, refugees forlorn, and soul song released in crackling exhalation of roaring memory. I singe scattered thoughts and recall people long gone. I feed the iron oven the ire of my past, declarations, demands, prayers. Wind-dried leaves stammer through smoke. Birds crowd brick pews atop the chimney, their huddle cured in winter's incense, starlings, sunrise, rooftop mass. I'm inspired mostly by 19th century novelists and poets, and I finally read Les Miserables by the great poet Victor Hugo. In 2007, I read it late, but I'm obsessed with the characters. This is from my chapbook Crow Weather, and this is for the love of my life. Gammon. A houseless beggar girl panhandled near the shopping center by the bridge. I see the collapse. Sister of Gavroche, I see the collapse. I offer her a few dollars from my penury savings. Wish her Merry Christmas and to be safe. While only 13 miles down the road, young women take their more expensive clothes off unsafely, where men give them hundreds and wish them ill will, regardless of the holiday. When will she be able to disrobe in order to bathe, to warm herself from the cold sleep of urchin travel? She would disappear into the fog above the river, whose true name is no longer known. I did not know her true name. Men who pay each night for the young women in foggy, glowing whorehouses to peel their clothing off do not know their true names. I see the collapse, Eponine. I see the collapse. Before Christmas, a young woman, threadbare, begs along the highway near the Stop and Shop, north of the Gentlemen's Club, where those men beg and pay for young flesh to parade in freak show circus gleam, never knowing that they are someone's desperate daughters, alone under lights of chattel anonymity. This is dedicated to her progeny. Too many New York young people cannot afford a higher education. It's time for the state to step up its game with increasing state support if New York is to remain competitive and serve our students well. SUNY New Paltz College President Donald Christian. This is for Christmas 2015 and today. Hunger Valley, New York. You play with the handheld electronic re-education center, dreaming of your weekend, and a little boy cries because his family has no food. You worry about your yoga mat and yoga clown costume, and a little girl goes to bed hungry as the Manhattan skyline lights the night, the strange reaching lamp of street dwellers. Hungry children, hungry babies, cell phone apps, meals of Apple laptops, autonomous shrine of her laptop, craft beer, top shelf parties, and holiday calories, as parents shoplift from Price Chopper and ShopRite, where the markups for Thanksgiving had ghosts of local farmers wishing to reincarnate just to revolt. If babies and children are skipping meals in the Hudson Valley, what about West Virginia, inner cities, and Appalachia? Selfish bourgeois college student carries a sign. This is not rational. A rate hike, higher tuition. But is he hungry on the New Paltz campus, sneaking to a food pantry instead of a packed dorm refrigerator or dining hall? Does she eat the wings washed down with high-end beer? Or have weekend college brew binges been canceled for students to eat at soup kitchens? Children go to bed hungry in New York City's suburbs, and the priority is not to feed them, but to go shopping. Most college students are not poor when their basic needs are met, while outside the fortress gates, the poor see privation and blight. What does the famished child see when he goes to bed hungry at night? No college student holding placards declaring food as a right. It gets worse. All Saints' Day 2018 at the Budget Inn, town of Newburgh, New York. Teresa Smith had myriad options of motherhood. She could have crept to the church, crying out, "Help me! Help my baby!" Dressed in motel bedsheet swaddling, the damp newborn delivered without midwife or doctor. A motel manager found the crimson manger. Crows spied from Oaks on 9W. She abandoned her infant, his All Saints' Day arrival, not at a hospital, not at his home, not at a church for the parson to find, not with a stranger, no friend. Mother mopped up some blood, crept in the bathroom, placed the babe in the cold, soiled toilet, tried to close the lid, wiped herself, and called a local taxi. Teresa, with no husband nor father, no matron to guide her to nurse the infant she will never know, chose murder as an end to maternity. Had the motel clerk not found the natal blood, had the clerk not borne witness to Smith's attempted escape, the sordid tale of an autumn morning would have ended a Halloween nightmare no film could ever render. Crows spoke from Oaks on 9W, not to testify to his birth, but to cry out to save the child found in a bathroom manger by police. He is now warm, safe, worth more than excuses for addiction. All right. I'm going to ask Hayden Wayne to join me. This is about the great General Howland. You're in his library, after all. He's standing by the clock this evening up above me. I have seen him in the watchfires of 1,000 circling camps. From the Battle Hymn of the Republic by Julia Ward Howe. Howland's Library. It's not the strange art hanging on the walls, nor the poetry. The general does not like the free verse, but the grandfather's clock stands again, a metronome, as the first bow walks across the cello's ribs, sweeps the catgut viola hair, and our general nods in approval. The quartet's fervor calls Maestro Mozart, but no one smells the faint gaslight breath. The maestro takes the balustrade and wanders stacks of sleeping books. His coattail rustles dust and spider webs dislodge and float to the old pine floor. Ghosts, dreaming of ghosts. Look to the chandelier. Once gas flames danced low, admired by tiny brass cherubs beckoning the curious traveler to the hallway of Howland on a dark winter's evening. The violins whimper, moan, then screech, birds trapped in a locked room. Can the quartet summon Manassas, Antietam, Richmond in a heinous July afternoon of paranoia and destruction? What can you tell us from the dark secrets of heirloom history, General Sir? Raise the salute to the ghastly sentries posted in your honor aside the entrance at the big red doors. Tyranda is glowing tonight Your library on Main Street is filling with ghost patrons, eager to read your books they'd never consider antique. They wait just beyond the doors of your grand, eerie library. You, General, stand with the shade of architect Hunt as he gazes from each of the 6 gables, or hovering just over the chimney. Dozens of faces appear in the old volumes stacked in dust and cobwebs on the balcony. Faces of soldiers you once led, friends, family, and patrons invested in subscription. The quartet's passion is rosined in fear, bringing wraiths through the second-floor windows, down the chimney, whispering in the old radiators, calling them from the banks of the Hudson with a tyrant haberdasher from the storage room at Bank Square. His wrinkled forehead sweats fog, which encompasses the young musicians whose clothing changes from skirts to gowns, from suit coats to antebellum frocked wool. The General's top hat falls from the balcony as a string groans, then breaks. A straining violin held by a terrified young woman, she shrieks, calling on Mozart, as the General stands beside her, diaphanous hands on her psychic brow, caressing her shoulder in comfort she cannot feel, but sees. The music does not falter. She is alone in Howland's charmed library. Hundreds of whispering crows walk down the grand staircase, scattering coal dust feathers, glutting the hallway, eyes enkindled, burning to an October crimson. Wings flap to the entrance of the bloodless, beloved librarian. The matron leads the young soldiers, Grand Army of the Republic, in indigo, blue bellies, bullet holes, or shattered limbs, arrive to see their benevolent officer. Patrons disembark from coaches, ladies bedecked in Victorian finery, gentlemen in the best of coats, curious to find the tumult of strings, tones walking out into a chilled winter Main Street. The mesmerized quartet moves the chairs used by poets on Friday nights to allow the good General Howland to stand in the center while troops surround their leader and adagios turn bellicose as the drummer boy with the broken stick hanging from a shrapnel-torn hand begins the battle hymn of the Republic, as each member of the quartet sits, mouths agape, empty-handed, as the violins, viola, and cello play by themselves. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Hayden Wayne. I'll call Hayden back a little bit later if you can handle more torture. All right. As the evening gets later, the ghosts abound. But first, here is my biography. What Hayden read was a paid-for biography. This is my real biography. And it's dedicated to one of my masters, Edgar A. Poe. The Folly of Freelance. I am a freelance writer. I am a freelance editor. My folly? People no longer read literature for love. They read it and change it. They only read it if they are paid or forced to. I reside in a Grub Street flat. I am a reborn hack, Maxwell Perkins to the damned. A ghostly scrivener with no scrivener's sons in the city of lame cliches. Do not look homeward, amateur. Look backwards to where you slept in school. Refused the Golden Fleece library card. Heeded the sirens of television. Electronic driftnet for human souls. Read magazines and comic books instead of history and epic novels. It does not have to take the top of your head off. It does not have to poison you in a basement nor starve you in an attic. Writing is a source of credibility. When the clothes are falling from your emaciated frame, teeth are rotting, and shoplifting is a priority, not a pastime. Freelance is not a knight errant nor mercenary for the muse, but a nebulous title to cover your tracks under the radar when you are a writer and your life has been derailed. I hide in Fagin's garret, residing in haunted memoirs, a scrivener, scrying not for fame, but to leave a legacy of a purpose, not a pastime. Well, my voice is on its way out, but I have just a few more. Thank you. Bar the voice, don't let it escape. I want to tell all of the younger poets in the house tonight that you really can write poetry every day if you have no life. I write poetry every day, and I think you should, or at least I try to write it every day.
I say you write every day because it is your life.
Thank you. This is for another love of my life. You can see her if you ever go to the Dock Street Theater in Charleston, South Carolina. Nettie Dickerson at the Dock Street Theater, Charleston, South Carolina, 1840s to present. America's first theater in the Holy City. That's what we used to call Charleston, the Holy City. Nettie and the Lightning Storm. Contractors think they see her in the red gown. The air is electric. The storm is down on all fours throughout the geriatric streets of Charleston as the Dock Street Theater's stage vibrates thespian light on a Saturday night. The clerk of St. Philip's on her rounds. Second floor halls heavy with cigar smoke, pheromones, and whiskey ruin. Loud voices and bed creaks, laughter and release, lightning without, humid thunder within. A fire took down the first structure, the progeny raised in the 1780s. Third offspring became the Planters Hotel. Church Street, self-evident irony, young Nettie in her spinster costume witnessed the horror hostlers from the nearby church's bell tower. The clerk of St. Philip's, far above the ground, her sojourn of reconciliation. Tears fell as the bell tolled of a future not to be believed by the fine wives of gentlemen patrons. Nettie could taste the tempest trumpeted in from the Atlantic's antebellum enigmas. Carriages carried the charmed as waifs waited for a coin. From her steeple podium, the lovely maid bore witness. Ill winds commingled her outrage. Her stage waited, and the end was no little death. The legend was created before the strike, throughout the decades by tales and elocution. From their stage, actors feel chills arriving from unseen gestures. Ozone perfume, guests fondled by crawling paranoia, celestial camera flashes, and wisps of the red dress. They only see her above the knees, visage much older, eternal horror, feral, scent of union pouring out of the basement, penetrating the second floor. Antique spittoon rolls across the stage. Dock Street is now Queen Street, and she still attends services each Sunday. She's really there, by the way, the ghost. A friend of mine told me. I am for the birds. This is for the pileated woodpecker. The red crest at dawn. The woodpecker taps through traffic. A cursed commuter march to the scaffold. He stipples sleeping bark as clouds weave a gray winter frown. Bird digs through the iced carapace, a surgeon's morning metronome. He warms his own dream, drills in frozen lichen and old moss, seeking the ill humor, insect troves before snow walks to greet him as he meets seed thieves at the Hanging Beacon, a well-stocked winter food pantry. Learn your birds because they know who you are. All right. This is, well, it already happened this year, but sometimes these short pieces, they go through dozens of erosions?
Iteration.
Yes. Well, erosion, I heard the word erosion. But yes.
We touched that before.
First snow. Feral dark. Walk through frost-bruised park. Gnarled trees and brazen brambles. No candles, no trophy torch to paint goblins as merely sneering boulders. To wait until sunrise would wound us in ice coats, capes of wind scattering random thoughts, cold wandering, boreal crusts and packing snow, congeal wild mind for eternity until spring sings up through mottled corpse with gray mushroom sprouts, grass quills, quivering green erotic verses, or couches of soft moss, briar, pine, wiry vines like brown Concord snakes dangling from oak arms. Racked by sovereign snow shrill, we tithe our isolated prayers in a stark cathedral for December redemption. I don't use snow blowers, I use a shovel, if anybody needs to know, full disclosure, because it's pleasurable. And I'm mad, I tell you. Oh, thank you. Whoever said yeah, thank you. I'll give you your $10 later. All right, we're almost done, and then I'll release you into the wild. I mentioned Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart earlier. Music, even in the most terrible situations, must never offend the ear, but always remain a source of pleasure. W.A. Mozart. Slamming doors around Mozart. It didn't just jar him, it changed the order of his day. Snow followed him home. The tavern's glow could not keep the maestro content with beer and flesh autographs, not because of sonatas or string quartets, a chamber with a high fire in an adulterous hearth, blankets and sweets, perfumes not of Constance. He shook many a proper hand, lodge affiliates, patrons notwithstanding. He retreated to the room where inspiration spread her seraphic wings, fingers inked in proof of scores, magnum opus, until the Fräulein slammed the door. He shook, he reeled, tossed the ink pot into the fire, ripped the parchment to minutiae, crude slangs of outrageous fortune, genteel salon talk forgotten. The doors, the windows and shutters to be closed gently, the touch of a child upon the knob, a breeze across his desk and brow to rouse him from sleep. No, a bull goring, a horse kicking, a cart crashing into a tree, slamming doors to destroy the quintet, the love letter, the quartet painted in mere hours before dinner. She had but one chance left, or the sack and home to penance at the peasant's cottage. Herr Mozart tore the curtain down, his face contorted in a madness only the muse could sanction. Constance? Nay. Nonnerin? Yes. His offended ears covered in a fit of childish rage. His older sister was over 100 miles away. Mozart's idol had become another's idol. She was a mother. Salzburg could not hold the genius, this youngest of 7, father of 6. He had the door left open. Snow covered the entrance hall, the snows of quiet December. It's from a manuscript of poems inspired by classical composers. I've got about 24 of them, 25 of them by now. One day it will be published. Let's see. If Haydn would take his post. Not yet. I might dispel that. You want to hear it now?
Absolutely.
Oh, look at the request. You know, Ludwig.
I've got my
Maestro Beethoven. This is from my book, my first full-length book of poetry, Ophelia's Offspring, which was published up in the Finger Lakes area of New York State, in Canona, at Foothills Publishing. So I take a lot of liberties with one of my maestros, with this one. Beethoven. Alas, I understand you, Beethoven. I place my left ear close to the wax and blood-stained parchment, but I am wearing glasses, yet do not envy blind poets. I rub my ear against the book, strike the tear-flooded table with my head. I cannot tell where I shall wake, or what the manuscript will look like once the coffee dries on the parchment and the record ceases your sound. I leap to my boots. The lantern gasps at gray phantoms flooding the dusty room. Over the casement, where winter has sucked warm air into ice wood. Oh, great Sagittarius, you move through 9 dimensions as you had when you lived. I am not impressed with your lodge affiliation. I'd heard enough about how the brothers bailed Amadeus out of trouble. What of Countess Erdodi, who is the ghost of the trio? The snows of the nearby woods in moonlight recount your wrath. Von Schiller's Springtime was your mythic past. Your noble morality is a rustic dance. If music is the mediator between worlds, you, only you, command the entities. Your spiritual son attended your funeral, but died just 1 year later. Oh, and I wander your string quartets. I walk the breezy Regency fields where my poetic ancestors strolled after an evening meal. When I am besieged by your symphonies, my passions reflect the great tempests of the Atlantic, whose twisted, amorous wraiths beckon German ghosts from Bonn and Berlin. I want to hear Razumovsky. silence. As she played your piano, I brewed in stark January to the somber snows of the 7th Saligreto. At least you thought you had a son. At least your immortal beloved propelled the trauma of your darkest passions. Libations of a 5th. You are the obstreperous emperor, great one. I too have seized fate by the throat. When destiny stood at my door, pounding on the casket wood, I emerge from each time I write, garret resplendent with the raw force of your sublime melodies. Thank you, Hayden. That's all I can do. Hayden Wayne. Thank you. My final parting word is, in Whitman's words, permit to